Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really cut through the noise and pull out those key nuggets of knowledge so you can get properly informed. And today, well, we're jumping straight in with something quite remarkable from the battlefield. These low-cost FPV drones, that's first-person view. Russia's now using them, well, not just for spying, but as platforms to actually launch anti-tank grenades. It's more than just a new gadget. It feels like a real shift towards this sort of distributed, low-cost way of fighting, small units getting precision strike capability.
Yeah, it's the speed that's striking, isn't it? How quickly these adaptable, almost off-the-shelf technologies are getting right onto the front lines. The Russian Moz is reporting this units from the 51st Army Southern Military District, specifically the 5th Motorized Rifle Guards Brigade in Krasnik. They're deploying these FPV drones as mobile launchers now, and they describe the process. The drone flies close, fires the grenade, films the hit, drops the empty tube, and flies back to reload. It's a very vivid picture of how the economics of war are changing, puts serious firepower in the hands of, smaller, quicker units.
So you're with us on the deep dive, and our mission today really is to give you that shortcut, help you understand the latest global developments without feeling totally overwhelmed. We've got a whole stack of diverse sources here. We're going to cover, broadly, three main areas. First, that evolving situation in Ukraine, these drone tactics, but also the conflicting reports, successes, losses, all that. Second, the diplomatic side, some high-stakes moves happening before a big U.S.-Russia summit, and how European leaders are reacting is mixed. And third, a really significant policy shift. Australia deciding to recognize the Palestinian state. We're basically here to help you connect the dots, get the why behind it all, and see these complex issues from a few different angles.
Absolutely. And staying with Ukraine for a moment, the Russian Ministry of Defense has also been reporting advances. Their battle group center units, for example, claim they've pushed forward, taken Luniko in the Donetsk region. Said it was after day-long operations. Moscow also put out figures on Ukrainian losses over 24 hours, claimed destruction of various armored vehicles, a U.S. troop transport, across different fronts.
Okay, but here's the crucial thing, right? These are official Russian reports. They haven't been independently confirmed by Ukraine or verified by, outside sources. So we always need to take these kinds of claims from either side, really with a pretty big grain of salt, a healthy dose of caution. But it does raise that vital question. How do you listening really make sense of these totally different stories from both sides, especially with no independent verification? What does that actually mean for understanding what's happening?
That's exactly it. That's the challenge. Information validation in a conflict zone, it makes getting the full truth incredibly hard. It's the classic fog of war. But we also have significant reports coming from Ukraine. Just the night before those Russian claims, Ukrainian forces launched a series of drone attacks across Russia. They were specifically targeting defense industry sites, infrastructure. The Russian MOD actually confirmed their air defenses intercepted over 30 Ukrainian drones, places like Nizhny Novgorod, Belgorod, Crimea. Even the mayor of Moscow, Sobyanin, said 7 drones heading for the capital were shot down, caused flight restrictions at airports.
And these attacks, they weren't just hitting buildings, there was a human cost. Russian regional authorities reported casualties. 3 people killed in drone attacks in Tula and Nizhny Novgorod regions. In Tula, the governor confirmed 2 deaths, 2 hospitalized. Nizhny Novgorod, 1 death, 2 hospitalized after an attack on an industrial zone. And a Ukrainian security source talking to Reuters claimed the target was a Russian factory, one making components for long-range missiles like the Kh-32, Kh-101, key parts of Russia's strike capability. On their side, the Russian MOD claimed they destroyed 59 Ukrainian drones that night total, 12 just over Tula.
Yeah, this whole expanding drone war, it really marks a critical pivot, doesn't it, in modern conflict. The battle for industrial capacity, for civilian morale, it now stretches way beyond traditional front lines, makes every factory a potential target. Every city, potentially, a part of the battleground. It forces nations to defend their entire economic and social fabric, not just the borders. It's a stark reminder of how conflict just bleeds into everyday life now.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. From that intense battlefield energy to the maybe more intricate dance of diplomacy, because there's a high-stakes summit coming up that has Europe watching very, very closely. We're talking about the planned meeting between the U.S. and Russia. Ukraine, obviously, is top of the agenda. Poland's prime minister, for instance, made a statement that really captures the mood across the continent, described it as being somewhere between fear and hope. It's almost dizzying, isn't it? How quickly things can seem to shift from intense fighting to potential talks.
The tension is definitely palpable. This meeting between Trump and Putin, it's scheduled for August 15th. in Alaska. The big worry in Kiev, naturally, is that these two leaders might just try and hammer out terms to end the war on their own, a war that's already been going for 3.5 years. But according to Polish PM Tusk, there has been a promise from the American side, a promise to consult European partners about their positions before that Alaska meeting. He noted that does offer some, reassurance.
So a little bit of calm, maybe, but still a lot of wait and see.
Hmm.
Hmm. Tusk himself said he has many fears, but also hope. He also mentioned analyzing recent statements, suggesting maybe the U.S. president is starting to grasp the arguments from Ukraine and Europe a bit better. But being an experienced politician, he added a word of caution. You can't guarantee that position will hold.
And that really hits on a key point, doesn't it? The consistency of diplomatic positions. How reliable are they? It's not just Poland feeling this way either. Last Saturday, there was quite a significant joint declaration. Leaders from France, Italy, Germany, Poland, the UK, Finland, and the European Commission. They expressed support for trying to find peace, yes, but stressed that pressure on Russia must continue. And crucially, they emphasized Ukraine needs security guarantees.
Right. So for Tusk, that meeting of European leaders, it clearly signals they're aligned on how peace talks should happen. He was very direct. Any discussion like this has to include Ukraine at the table. And he finished with a pretty powerful line, saying for their partners, one thing is certain. Borders of a country cannot be changed by force. He added, the war can't end with the aggressor gaining an advantage. How significant is that unified message coming from such a broad coalition of European powers?
Oh, it's extremely significant. It's a very strong, unified stance on territorial integrity and justice. That really underpins the European view here. It sets a clear red line, effectively, for any potential peace negotiations moving forward.
Okay, let's take a leap now across the globe, all the way to Oceania, because Australia just made a pretty major policy decision. They're recognizing the Palestinian state. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese made the official announcement, spoke to the press, confirmed Australia will make it formal next month during the UN General Assembly.
Yes, and that decision, it does carry weight. By doing this, Australia joins a growing list. France, the UK, Canada have made similar moves recently. It definitely increases international pressure on Israel. According to Albanese, the goal is to add to that international momentum towards a two-state solution and independent Palestine alongside Israel, aiming for a ceasefire in Gaza, release of hostages. That's the stated context.
So what's the thinking behind it for Australia specifically? Albanese explained they got commitments from the Palestinian Authority, primarily that Hamas would have zero involvement in a future state. He was quite emphatic, actually. Called the two-state solution humanity's best hope for breaking the cycle of violence in the Middle East, ending the conflict, the suffering, the famine in Gaza.
That's a critical element. Albanese also mentioned he spoke with Israeli PM Netanyahu recently, emphasized the need for a political solution, not just military. He noted this decision was also pushed forward by what he called Netanyahu's disregard for international appeals and failure to meet legal obligations in Gaza. In a joint statement with Foreign Minister Penny Wong, they were even more direct. They said the Netanyahu government is ending the prospect of a two-state solution by rapidly expanding illegal settlements, threatening annexation, and explicitly opposing any Palestinian state.
Wow, that sounds like a significant diplomatic rebuke, really. Albanese seems to see a kind of window of opportunity now. On one side, he says the Palestinian Authority has committed to reforms, demilitarization, elections. On the other, the Arab League has demanded Hamas end its rule in Gaza. So from his viewpoint, it's a chance to isolate Hamas. What are the practical effects of such strong language from a country like Australia on the world stage?
You're right, it's strong language. It's an attempt to use both internal and external pressures, trying to create conditions for a different path. Foreign Minister Penny Wong has already been doing diplomatic outreach, informed U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio about the decision. And we know this kind of move isn't necessarily welcomed everywhere in Washington. There's been criticism from figures like Trump, Rubio before about Canada and France doing similar things.
And as you'd probably guess, Israel's reaction was quick and not positive. Their ambassador to Australia, Ami Maimon, criticized it on social media, said it harms Israel's security, hinders hostage talks.
Stepping back, looking at the bigger picture, it really just highlights how deeply divided the international community remains on this issue. What's interesting is that until fairly recently, Albanese had been quite cautious about putting a public timeline on recognition, partly because public opinion in Australia itself was divided over Gaza. But things seem to shift quite markedly this month. Tens of thousands marched in Sydney calling for humanitarian aid in Gaza as the crisis worsened. Albanese himself admitted that the massive concern over Gaza's devastation, not just from world leaders but from the community, significantly influenced this decision.
And just to add another layer, a former Australian Foreign Minister, Gareth Evans, even weighed in, called Australia's decision to move ahead absolutely timely.
It really does underscore how domestic pressure and international events can suddenly converge, accelerating these big foreign policy shifts, often faster than anyone expects.
So wrapping this all up, what does it mean for you, for the global stage? We've covered a huge amount of ground today. For those fast-changing front lines in Ukraine, the surprising tech innovations, to the really complex dance of international diplomacy ahead of that crucial summit, and then that major policy shift on humanitarian grounds in the Middle East. It seems undeniably clear, doesn't it, how events that seem separate are actually deeply interconnected, each one shaping the global landscape, really, in real time.
Which brings us to a really critical question for you to think about. How will this rapid evolution of battlefield tech and these complex, sometimes contradictory signals from international diplomacy, how will they continue to reshape global power dynamics and humanitarian efforts?
In the months ahead.
Yeah, exactly. What stands out to you from today's deep dive? And maybe more importantly, what further questions does it raise for you?